I'm Jay Heizer.
And I'm Barry Render, co-authors of your operations management text. Every manager in every business must prepare forecasts. It may be for cars at a Mercedes dealership, seats on a Delta Airlines flight, or tickets for an Orlando Magic basketball game. No plans can be made until you have some knowledge of the demand. In the case of the Magic, this means not only forecasting ticket sales, but also translating that forecast into specific ticket prices for each seat at each game.
You may have heard the phrases yield management or revenue management, which have long been used by airlines, hotels, and car rental firms to adjust pricing based on fluctuating demand on a seasonal, daily, or even hourly basis. In this video, you'll meet Anthony Perez, who just finished his MBA at the University of Florida. Anthony is responsible for managing the pricing structure for the Magic. In order for the Magic to maximize revenue, he uses dynamic pricing models and forecasting tools, including regression analysis, as discussed in your operations management text.
Anthony Perez, Director of Business Strategy for the NBA's Orlando Magic, has a challenging job. One of his key duties is to make decisions about ticket prices for the team, both for season ticket holders and individual game ticket purchasers. Ticket sales are a major driver of revenue for the team and a key part of operations management for the sports franchise. Yet until recently, the mechanisms used for ticket pricing hadn't been closely examined to determine a precise pricing model.
A couple of years ago, the way we priced our games was we charged the same price for every game, no matter who we were playing or when we were playing them. We took another step forward in that in recent years where we started to at least acknowledge that some opponents were worth more than others, and so we separated out a few games and said these games are obviously the more in-demand opponents. We're going to charge a little bit more for them. And so that's sort of how we worked for the last couple of years until we decided that there had to be a better way of looking at establishing prices.
In response to increasing pressure to better manage team revenues and not leave money on the table, the Orlando Magic took a page from the yield management playbooks of the airline and hospitality industries, according to Alex Martins, CEO of the Orlando Magic.
Yield management has become a cornerstone of how we've grown, our revenue base. This is not a new concept in business. The airlines have used it, hotels have used it, rental car agencies use it, and a number of other businesses. But it hasn't been prevalent in sports. In sports, we basically priced every game and every seat almost the same way all season long. And the fact of the matter is that there is supply and demand, in any business, and there is supply and demand in our business, and there's a demand for, the better teams in the league. So certainly there's a higher demand for a Lakers game or a Miami Heat game these days.
With big-name teams better positioned to capture more revenue from their games, the Magic franchise such as opponent strength, the day of the week, and time of the year games are played. Instead of assigning all tickets the same price throughout a season, each game is individually priced well before the season even begins. Multiple regression, described in the forecasting chapter of your Heizer Render Operations Management textbook, plays a big role in this process.
We use a regression model, and what we do is we look at historical information. So we've got some insight as to what types of transactions have happened on the secondary market, StubHub, Ticket Exchange, those sorts of places. The dependent variable in that case is a metric that we use based on secondary market data. That is essentially volume, so how many tickets were sold for a particular game, and the average price that was paid for those tickets. So it's essentially a revenue number, but that sort of tells us what any game generated on the secondary market. The independent variables in the model that we use have been time of the year, so when the game is played, start of the season, as we get towards April, you start to see demand go up, whether it's around the holiday season, those sorts of things. The day of the week, so what we found is that Fridays, the weekends as you would expect, are the top sort of days. Fridays and Sundays are essentially equal as a weekend date, Saturdays being the best, and then also an opponent score. We've got what we feel like is a pretty good metric, but it's the most subjective, I guess I would say, for what our model, the factors that our model uses. But all that being said, we've got an adjusted R squared from our model of around 0.85. So it's pretty good. It's worked well for us, and so that's what we've been using.
Then, as the season progresses, Anthony's staff closely monitors ticket sales and other factors to determine their effect on upcoming game prices.
We look at how well every game is selling compared to what we expect it to do, and we've used regression models to set those benchmarks as well. We look at interest in the game. So in the case of Ticketmaster.com, we look at unique page views. So how many people are going and looking at a particular game every day, and what does that tell us about the interest in that game? And then again, we look at secondary market information. So we can see ticket exchange data whenever we want. So we'll keep an eye on what are people doing there, what prices are they paying, where are they looking to sit, and those sorts of things. So it's something that we certainly keep an eye on every day.
Occasionally, a top player gets traded mid-season. If the Magic are scheduled to play the teams that traded, Anthony's team will adjust upcoming game ticket prices since that affects the opponent rating in the regression analysis.
Now, opponent rating is where there's some subjectivity. So it's both in terms of how well a team has performed historically. Did they make the playoffs last year? How far did they go in the playoffs? But also, who's on their team? Do they have what you would consider a superstar, a single player that's a major draw for our customers and fans who want to come not only see the Magic but also see a top player in the NBA who's in town. And so if that player gets traded and it changes the composition of the team, the opponent rating for the team that the player was on would change, and in that case it would go down.
Not only does the Magic's management monitor opponents and players, they use secondary market information to see how tickets are selling, all the way down to the individual sections and rows in the Amway Center. Using dynamic pricing, the ticket prices for a slow-moving section might be dropped to drive demand.
We have a relationship with SAS where they've provided us with some great analytical tools that we use to evaluate pricing. And one of the things that we've got through SAS is a web portal where we're able to put up different reports and things. And one of those reports that we use is what we call a heat map. And it's a graphic that shows every game through a calendar view, as well as behind that the maps of the bowl for every particular game that shows us all the price codes. And what we're able to do is we're able to set criteria for when we would want to be notified that a particular game is selling above or below expectations. And that's what allows us to drill down and see which games are in trouble or which games are selling really well so that we can make price changes on the fly to adapt for the demand that we're seeing and make sure that we are maximizing revenue.
While the Orlando Magic organization is the first team in the NBA to use dynamic pricing models for ticket pricing, Anthony shares his techniques with other teams in the league so they can benefit from his expertise. From his perspective, it's only fair, and it helps the entire league better manage its revenue to achieve profitability.
We have a team business operations unit at the NBA office whose sole purpose is to consult with every team in the league and share best practices. We are, in essence, we're a big corporation and we're a franchisee here in Orlando. And, as the greater whole is successful, we're here successful in Orlando. So the sharing of that information, the sharing of best practices is part of our normal operation. And we learn from each other and improve on our operations every day.